humans lived peacefully among countless civilizations spread across the galaxy. They traded with others, shared knowledge, and tried to avoid conflicts whenever possible. Most species saw humans as ordinary people. Some even believed that Earth was nothing special compared to the powerful world that controlled large parts of space. Few people knew that humans preferred keeping many things hidden rather than showing their full ability.
Open fire!
On a small colony world located far from Earth,
stop.
a young human girl lived with her family.
Fire the main cannons!
She was known by everyone in her
Move,
neighborhood
move.
because of her kind heart. No matter who needed help, she always tried to make their day better. She would often spend hours helping elderly neighbors, taking food to families in need, and caring for injured animals that wandered into the streets. People from many different species lived together in the city. Although cultures were different, most citizens respected each other. The young girl loved learning about those differences. She believed that understanding others could bring peace to places where fear and hatred once existed. Her biggest dream was simple. She wanted to help build a future where nobody would be judged because of where they came from. Her parents often laughed when she spoke about changing the galaxy. They knew the dream was huge, but they admired her determination. Every evening, they would sit together during dinner, sharing stories about their day. Those simple moments meant everything to them. Their home was filled with love, and they hoped their daughter would continue growing into the caring person she had always been. But beyond the peaceful streets of their city, trouble was spreading across many star systems. Several powerful groups were fighting for influence. Politicians accused one another of corruption. Criminal organizations secretly worked with important officials. Ordinary citizens heard rumors, but very few people knew how serious the situation had become. Most families ignored the news and focused on their daily lives. The young girl did the same. She spent her time studying, helping others, and dreaming about one day visiting Earth, the world her grandparents always described with pride. She had never seen the blue oceans and green forests with her own eyes, but she promised herself that one day she would. One afternoon, while returning from a community center where she volunteered, she noticed something strange near a transportation station. Several people were arguing in hushed voices. They looked nervous and kept checking their surroundings. At first, she thought nothing of it. But moments later, one of them dropped a small device before quickly leaving the area. Curious, she picked it up. The device appeared damaged. Thinking that it belonged to someone important, she brought it home. She hoped to return it to its owner. That simple decision changed everything. When the device activated unexpectedly, it displayed information that she did not fully understand. But even she could tell that something was wrong. There were recordings, secret messages, and lists of illegal activities involving people who held powerful positions. Some names belonged to respected officials. Others were connected to dangerous criminal groups. She immediately became frightened. Unsure of what to do, she showed the information to a trusted friend of her family. He was shocked after seeing the files. He advised her parents to report everything to the local authorities. Believing that justice would prevail, they followed his advice. They had no idea that some of the same officials responsible for those crimes controlled the system itself. Within hours, word spread among the wrong people. Those responsible panicked. Years of secret deals and illegal operations could collapse if the information became public. They feared investigations. They feared losing their power, and most of all, they feared the truth. To them, one human family seemed insignificant. They convinced themselves that nobody would care. Humans, in their eyes, were peaceful and weak. They had no influence compared to mighty empires and wealthy corporations. Silencing one witness appeared to be an easy solution. As days passed, strange things began happening around the family. Unknown vehicles appeared outside their neighborhood. Communication systems occasionally stopped working. Unfamiliar faces watched their home from a distance. The young girl sensed that something was wrong. She could see worry in her parents' eyes, even though they tried to hide it. Still, they trusted the authorities. They believed that honest people would protect them. Sadly, they were wrong. One evening, while returning from a charity event, tragedy struck. The event shocked everyone who knew her. Neighbors could not believe what had happened. Friends cried. Teachers struggled to accept the terrible news. Even fees from other species gathered outside the house to support her grieving parents. The entire community mourned the loss of a girl who had spent her life helping others. People demanded answers, but the answers never came. Investigators quickly dismissed important details. Reports were altered. Witnesses were ignored. Officials claimed that there was no evidence pointing toward foul play. The case was quietly pushed aside. Many people felt that something was wrong, but fear kept them silent. Some local reporters attempted to investigate, only to find doors closing in front of them. Others received warnings to stop asking questions. Slowly, public attention began fading. Powerful individuals believed they had succeeded. They thought the truth had disappeared forever. What they did not understand was that news travels in unexpected ways. Far from the colony world, messages reached Earth. At first, the story appeared to be just another tragic report among thousands received every day. But as investigators reviewed the details, certain things stood out. Missing records, contradicting statements, witness testimonies that had suddenly vanished. Experienced analysts became suspicious. Independent groups began searching deeper. The more they discovered, the more disturbing the situation became. Evidence suggested that corruption reached levels nobody expected. Soon, the information reached leaders across Earth. Private meetings were organized. Experts, diplomats, and intelligence officers gathered behind closed doors. Many of them sat in silence after reviewing the reports. Some had children of their own. Some remembered stories from generations past, when humans had promised never to ignore injustice, no matter how distant it seemed. For years, humanity had focused on peace and cooperation. They had avoided showing their true capabilities to the galaxy. Most civilizations believed Earth had become soft and harmless. That belief had been carefully encouraged, because long ago humanity had learned that strength did not always need to be displayed. Sometimes, silence itself was protection. Deep beneath Earth's oceans, hidden doors that had remained sealed for generations quietly opened. Inside enormous chambers, ancient systems awakened. Lights flickered after decades of darkness. Machines began operating once again. Far beneath mountains and within secret facilities buried under ice, forgotten stations received coded messages. Personnel who had trained their entire lives for emergencies suddenly received unexpected orders. Around the planet, people who lived ordinary lives were called back into service. Nobody spoke publicly. No announcements were made. To the outside world, Earth remained calm. Markets stayed open. Children went to school. Families continued their daily routines. Yet behind that peaceful appearance, preparations had already begun. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the individuals responsible for the cover-up celebrated. They believed the problem had disappeared. They laughed at the idea that anyone would challenge them over the loss of one human girl. To them, it was over. But they had made one terrible mistake. They had underestimated how deeply humanity valued innocent lives. And somewhere in the darkness beyond the stars, things that many believed were only myths had started waking up. Very soon, the entire galaxy would discover that Earth had been hiding far more than anyone had ever imagined. The news of the young girl's death had reached every corner of Earth. Millions of people who had never met her felt heartbroken after learning about her story. She had been kind, helpful, and full of dreams. To many families, she reminded them of their own children. People asked the same question everywhere. Why had nobody protected her, and why were so many officials trying to hide the truth? The answers slowly began to emerge. Human investigators worked day and night. Independent journalists, intelligence experts, and legal teams examined every piece of information they could find. Bit by bit, the hidden picture became clearer. The girl had not been forgotten. Far from it. Her story had become personal to humanity. As more evidence was uncovered, public anger turned into determination. People were not asking for revenge. They wanted justice. They wanted the truth to be known. Most importantly, they wanted those responsible to answer for their actions. Earth's leaders shared the same view. Private meetings continued around the clock. Diplomats suggested peaceful solutions first. They believed that the Galactic Union would cooperate once all the evidence was presented. After all, no civilization could ignore such clear proof. Or so they thought. Human representatives delivered detailed reports to the highest authorities within the Union. They requested independent investigations and demanded the arrest of several powerful figures connected to the crime and cover-up. Days passed, then weeks. The answer finally arrived. The request had been denied. Officials claimed there was not enough evidence. They accused Earth of exaggerating the situation. Some leaders even suggested that humans were trying to gain sympathy for political reasons. The response shocked many civilizations. Even species that rarely agreed with humans found the decision strange. But behind closed doors, the corrupt leaders celebrated once again. They believed they had won. They thought Earth would eventually accept defeat and move on. They still saw humans as weak. That misunderstanding would soon become the greatest mistake of their lives. On Earth, another meeting was called. This one was different. The atmosphere inside the room was quiet. No one raised their voice. No one acted out of anger. Everyone understood the importance of the moment. Humanity had spent centuries avoiding unnecessary conflict. They had hidden their greatest achievements because they believed peace was always better than fear. But peace could not survive without justice. One final message was sent to the Galactic Union. It was respectful, it was calm, and it contained only one request. Hand over those responsible. Allow an independent investigation. Tell the truth, nothing more. The answer came quickly. The request was rejected again. Some officials openly mocked humanity. Others laughed during public interviews. Several commentators across the galaxy claimed Earth was pretending to be stronger than it really was. News programs treated the situation like a joke. People made fun of human diplomats. Even some military leaders from powerful empires dismissed the warnings. According to them, Earth had no influence. Earth had no power. Earth had no fleet. They were wrong. Far beneath the Pacific Ocean, enormous structures continued awakening. Hidden shipyards that had remained inactive for generations came back to life. Massive doors opened for the first time in hundreds of years. Engineers who had spent their lives maintaining secret systems watched with pride as ancient machines responded perfectly. Thousands of lights filled chambers larger than cities. Elsewhere, deep under frozen mountains, similar facilities became active. Around distant moons and hidden asteroids, signals traveled through space. Forgotten stations answered. Silent guardians that had waited patiently for centuries prepared themselves. Across Earth, ordinary citizens noticed nothing unusual. Children still attended school. Families still gathered for dinner. People still went to work. Life continued peacefully. But those who served in humanity's hidden defense network quietly returned to duty. Some had been teachers. Others had been scientists. Many had lived simple lives for decades. Yet they answered the call without hesitation, not because they wanted war, but because they wanted to protect what was right. Meanwhile, alien intelligence agencies started noticing strange things. Encrypted signals appeared where none should exist. Energy readings increased around isolated regions. Unknown objects were detected near forgotten sectors. At first, experts believed their instruments were malfunctioning, but soon, reports began arriving from multiple systems. Something was happening, and nobody understood what. Then came the day that changed everything. Without warning, enormous vessels emerged from locations long believed empty. One after another, then hundreds, then thousands. Ships unlike anything ever seen before appeared across known space. Their designs were elegant yet powerful. Their movements were calm and precise. They carried no symbols of conquest, only the emblem of Earth. Shock spread through our galaxy. Military analysts stared at their screens in disbelief. Intelligence agencies rushed to verify the information. Political leaders demanded explanations. How had humanity hidden so much? How had nobody noticed? Questions filled every communication network. But humans remained silent. There were no threats. No speeches, no declarations, only a single message, justice, nothing more. Fear quickly spread among those responsible for the cover-up. The same leaders who had laughed days earlier suddenly became nervous. Some attempted to destroy evidence. Others blamed one another. Several tried to disappear. But it was too late. Human investigators had already collected everything: financial records, secret messages, witness testimonies, hidden recordings. Nothing had escaped them. As panic grew, ordinary citizens across the galaxy became confused. They had expected humanity to seek revenge. Instead, they witnessed something completely different. Human fleets avoided civilian areas. Trade routes remained open. Medical stations continued operating. Communication systems stayed active. No innocent world was threatened. People slowly realized that Earth was not attacking civilizations. Earth was exposing criminals. That difference changed everything. Several species that had once underestimated humans began offering support. Their leaders admitted that mistakes had been made. Some apologized for remaining silent. Others shared information that helped uncover even deeper corruption. As the truth spread, more shocking discoveries appeared. The conspiracy surrounding the young girl's death was only one piece of a much larger network. For years, corrupt officials had abused their power. They had manipulated investigations. They had protected dangerous organizations. They had silenced witnesses, and they had assumed nobody would ever challenge them. Now the entire galaxy was watching. Independent reporters finally gained access to hidden information. News channels that once mocked Earth began changing their tone. Citizens everywhere demanded accountability. Massive protests appeared across multiple worlds. People wanted honesty. They wanted fairness, and above all, wanted the truth. Among the loudest voices were families. Parents held pictures of their children and asked one painful question: if this could happen to one innocent girl, what would stop it from happening again? Even mech officers serving under corrupt governments started questioning their leaders. Some refused orders. Others came forward with valuable information. The walls protecting powerful criminals began collapsing. Inside secure facilities, several officials desperately searched for ways to escape. Private ships were prepared. Secret routes were activated. False identities were created. But every attempt failed, because wherever they turned, human vessels were already there. Not attacking, not threatening, simply waiting. Patient, silent, and impossible to avoid. For the first time in their lives, the people who had believed themselves untouchable experienced fear. Meanwhile, throughout Earth, families watched events unfold together. Many remembered the girl whose story had started everything. Pictures of her smiling face appeared in homes and schools. Children wrote letters honoring her kindness. Communities held candlelight gatherings. Her parents, despite their pain, spoke publicly about hope and unity. They asked people not to spread hatred. They asked them not to seek revenge. They only wanted the truth. Their words touched billions. Humanity listened, and so did the galaxy. The image many species once held of humans began changing. They no longer saw a weak civilization, nor did they see conquerors. Instead, they saw something unexpected, a people capable of incredible strength, a people who valued life, a people who had hidden great power not out of fear, but out of wisdom. And as the hidden fleet continued standing watch among the stars, one truth became impossible to ignore. The galaxy had misunderstood Earth for a very long time, and the people responsible for taking one innocent life were finally beginning to understand just how serious that mistake had been. But the greatest revelations were still waiting ahead, because soon the entire galaxy would witness something even more powerful than Earth's hidden fleet. They would witness humanity's answer to injustice, and it would change history forever. As the truth continued spreading across the stars, more and more people realized that history was changing right before their eyes. For decades, powerful figures had controlled information. They had hidden secrets behind titles, money, and influence. Many believed they would never be held responsible for their actions. But they had underestimated something very important. They had underestimated ordinary people. Across hundreds of worlds, citizens began demanding answers. Families, workers, students, and even retired veterans gathered peacefully in public squares. They carried signs calling for honesty and justice. News reporters covered events that leaders could no longer ignore. People from different species stood side by side. Many of them had never trusted each other before. But now they shared the same goal. They wanted the truth. Inside government buildings, fear had replaced arrogance. The same officials who once laughed at humanity were now struggling to explain themselves. Every day brought new evidence. Secret accounts were uncovered. Hidden conversations were exposed. Witnesses who had stayed silent for years finally stepped forward. The walls built by corruption were falling apart, and the entire galaxy was watching. Several high-ranking leaders resigned. Others attempted to shift blame. Some claimed they had known nothing about the conspiracy, but investigators had records proving otherwise. There was nowhere left to hide. Meanwhile, Earth's hidden fleet remained exactly where it was. It did not advance. It did not threaten innocent worlds. It simply stood guard. Many civilizations expected humans to use their strength to dominate others. Instead, they witnessed patience. The more people watched humanity, the more confused they became. Some even asked a surprising question. If humans possessed this much power, why had they hidden it for so long? The answer came from an elderly historian during an interview that spread across the galaxy. He smiled gently before answering, because strength means very little without wisdom. Those words quickly became famous. Billions of people repeated them. And slowly, fear began giving way to respect. At the center of everything remained the memory of the young girl whose life had touched so many hearts. People learned about her kindness. They heard stories from neighbors who remembered her helping others. Teachers spoke about her dreams. Children shared drawings inspired by her hope for peace. Parents everywhere looked at their own sons and daughters and imagined the future she had been denied. The sadness people felt united them in unexpected ways. Species that had argued for generations started cooperating. Former rivals shared information. Communities that once distrusted one another began rebuilding friendships. Something beautiful was growing from tragedy. Then came the announcement that the galaxy had been waiting for. An independent council made up of representatives from many worlds would oversee public hearings. Everything would be transparent. Every piece of evidence would be examined. Every witness would be heard. No one would receive special treatment. People gathered around screens in homes, restaurants, schools, and public squares. For the first time in generations, citizens felt that truth mattered more than power. The hearings lasted for weeks. The stories that emerged shocked everyone. Corruption had reached deeper than anyone imagined. Entire networks had protected criminals. Investigations had been manipulated. Witnesses had been ignored. Honest officials had been removed from positions simply because they refused to cooperate with corruption. Many viewers struggled to believe what they were hearing. Some cried. Others sat in silence. But despite everything, one thing became clear. Justice was finally happening. Not through hatred, not through revenge, but through truth. Human representatives surprised everyone once again. They asked that innocent populations never be blamed for the crimes of a few individuals. They urged people not to spread anger. They encouraged cooperation instead of division. Their message reached billions, and it changed countless hearts. Many alien leaders openly admitted they had judged humanity unfairly. Some apologized for remaining silent. Others confessed that they had believed old stereotypes for far too long. Even military commanders who once mocked Earth publicly expressed respect. They had expected conquerors. Instead, they had found guardians. Months later, major reforms began across the galaxy. New laws were introduced. Independent investigations became mandatory. Systems protecting witnesses were strengthened. Abuses of power were punished more severely. Citizens gained greater rights. Transparency became a priority. People who had spent their entire lives believing that nothing could change suddenly found hope again. The changes did not happen overnight, but they happened, and that alone was remarkable. Back on Earth, life slowly returned to normal. Families continued gathering for meals. Children played in parks. Schools reopened after holidays. People returned to their jobs. Yet something had changed inside humanity. Not pride, not arrogance, but quiet confidence. Humans no longer felt the need to hide who they were. They had shown the galaxy their strength, and they had shown something even greater, their compassion. Deep beneath the oceans in hidden facilities, the legendary fleet remained active. But many ships returned to peaceful duties. Some delivered aid to damaged worlds. Others supported scientific missions. Medical teams traveled to distant colonies. Engineers helped rebuild infrastructure destroyed by years of corruption and neglect. Citizens everywhere noticed these efforts. Trust slowly grew. The image of Earth transformed completely. People no longer spoke about humans as weak, nor did they fear them as conquerors. Instead, they saw partners, friends, protectors. Years passed. A new alliance eventually formed between many civilizations. Its purpose was simple: to ensure fairness, to protect peace, and to prevent corruption from gaining power again. Earth became one of its most respected members, not because humans demanded leadership, but because they had earned trust. Children born during those years grew up hearing stories about what had happened. Schools taught lessons about kindness, responsibility, and courage. Teachers reminded students that even one life mattered, no matter how small or powerless someone seemed. Memorial gardens appeared across hundreds of worlds. People planted trees and flowers in memory of those who had suffered because of injustice. One particular memorial became famous throughout the galaxy. It was simple: no giant statues, no golden monuments, just a peaceful garden filled with colorful flowers and a small message written on a stone. It read, "May kindness never be ignored." Travelers visited from distant systems. Some sat quietly for hours, others left letters. Many brought their children. Parents used the place to teach important lessons. Lessons about compassion, lessons about courage, lessons about protecting others, and perhaps most importantly, lessons about never remaining silent when something is wrong. The girl's parents continued living quietly. Although the pain never completely disappeared, they found comfort in knowing that their daughter had changed the future. Not through power, not through wealth, but through the goodness she had shared during her short life. People often asked them how they managed to keep hope alive. Their answer never changed. They simply said, because she always believed people could become better. Those words touched millions. Even decades later, they were remembered. As time passed, the events that had once shaken the galaxy became part of history. Young people studied them in classrooms, historians wrote books, documentaries explored the changes that followed. But one fact remained unchanged. Everything had started with one innocent girl. Criminals had believed no one would care. Corrupt leaders had assumed humanity would stay silent. Powerful officials had treated her life as unimportant. They had all been wrong, because humanity had never measured the value of a person by status or influence. To them, every life mattered, and that belief had changed the stars themselves. Long after those responsible had faded into history, long after governments had changed and generations had passed, people across the galaxy still remembered the lesson born from those difficult days. True strength was not found in weapons, it was not found in fear, and it was not found in power. True strength was found in compassion, in courage, and in the willingness to stand up for those who could no longer stand for themselves. And whenever people looked toward Earth, they remembered that sometimes the greatest changes in history begin with something very small: a kind heart, a simple dream, and one life that the universe would never forget.